Our next speaker started his career as a disc jockey at age 17 in Jackson, Tennessee, earning $25 a week. Then he hosted the morning show at WHBQ in Memphis while a college student at Memphis State University. Eventually, he came to Los Angeles, and he became the morning man at KHJ. Later, he hosted radio shows on KRLA, KFWB, and the iconic KMPC. And he hosted nationally syndicated radio shows such as The Music of Your Life and Hit Parade. He has enjoyed a fabulous career in television, too. He hosted the TV show Teenage Dance Party on WHBQ TV in Memphis, where his friend Elvis Presley made an appearance. Of course, we have all seen Wink on television as host of such popular game shows as High Rollers, Det, Tic-Tac-Doe. Right? In 2006, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Let's welcome Wink Martindale.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chuck. Good afternoon, everybody. Everybody feel good? That's good. Sandy and I attended an Oscar party at the Beverly Hills Hotel this past weekend, and at our table sat Mary Wilson, one of the original Supremes. She couldn't be here today, but she wrote this letter. Sorry, Gene, but she wanted me to read this. Okay. And I work cheaper than you do.
Oh, yeah.
My dearest Mr. Mathis, when we, the Supremes, were still in our infancy as a young singing group of girls called the Primettes, we were asked by a local DJ to do a record hop in Detroit, Michigan, in which Johnny Mathis was appearing. Well, we went gaga. You were the hottest new recording star, and may I say, the cutest, next to Marvin Gaye. She could have left that out. Yes, all of us young girls swooned over you and Marvin Gaye. I could go on and on about your statistics, but I'm sure Wink and everybody else will talk about all of those wonderful love ballads that probably had a lot to do with the baby boom of the 1960s. One last thing, just as you probably did not recall us, the Primettes, the up-and-coming Supremes in 1963, you also may not remember that I was a neighbor of yours in the Hollywood Hills back in the 1970s. One of the biggest thrills of my life, Johnny, was waving at you whenever you would pass me in our little cars on Sunset Plaza and Sunset Boulevard. I knew I was living the good life, me waving at Johnny Mathis. Your friend and admirer, Mary Wilson of the Supremes. There you go, John. I've had the pleasure of being on the dais at these Pioneer events more than once. I was even pleased to be the honoree back in 2005. That's when they were still giving the clocks away, you know, to the honorees. Remember those in silver? They looked terrific, but none of them kept time. But I digress. I was first introduced to the Mathis Magic as a DJ in Memphis, Tennessee. The year was 1957. Quite a year for a 22-year-old newcomer from San Francisco. Between March and December of that year, we were treated to 4 songs, not 1, 2, or 3, but 4 songs in 1 year that still remain among the most recognizable hits of all time. They were wonderful, wonderful. It's not for me to say, chances are, and the 12th of never. Quite a year. In 57, you might turn on the radio and hear Hound Dog 1 minute, followed by Chances Are the next. And that's quite a credit to a voice that seems so out of place as the rock and roll era began to gain steam. My first of countless times to see Johnny perform live was at the Coconut Grove of the old Ambassador Hotel right after I had been transferred to KHJ from Memphis. And I got to tell you, he knocked my socks off. And he's continued to do so ever since. I remember so well as I listened to him sing Maria from West Side Story, it was almost, as the lyric says, almost like praying. It was almost like a religious experience. There's never been any singer, ever, in my humble opinion, who even comes close to his voice and his singing style. If you looked in the Webster's Unabridged under the word original, it's likely you would see a picture of Johnny Mathis. Let me make this point. Let me make this point before going further. Though this day honoring our man Mathis is very special to him, that's obvious, you got to understand this guy is giving up 18 precious holes of golf to be here. which proves that yet another honor, another plaque to add to countless honors and plaques in his beautiful home in the Hollywood Hills is very special to him. This is a man who has the luxury of choosing his concert dates around the country only in cities with golf courses he prefers. Bad golf course, you never see this guy sing. On the one hand, I'm surprised he's here, but on the other, it speaks well of his feeling for the pioneer broadcasters of Southern California. Personally, without question, Sandy and I have seen Johnny perform far more times than anybody else in the business, and that would include Elvis, and we saw him a lot of times. John's longtime promotion man, the late George Russell, and his wife Tess, who was secretary to Dick Whittinghill at KMPC, the four of us enjoyed a regular ritual prior to a Southern California concert. We'd have dinner. Sandy and I would pay for dinner, and George, remarkably, would come up with a couple of ducats for us. John, I don't know whether you knew that or not, but I want to thank you. Any night of a concert with Johnny Mathis was a red letter night. I'd almost be remiss if I failed to mention his opening act for the past several years, a hilarious guy who does both comedy and singing equally well. His name is Gary Muledeer, Muledder. That's not his real name. He changed it. His real name is Elizabeth Muledeer. One of my favorite stories that he told, and I've heard him tell this more than once, my favorite. Gary said, I remember one time when I was in Sunday school, I was trying to look up this little girl's dress, and the teacher caught me. She said, would Jesus do something like that? He said, no, he'd probably just create a big wind and blow the whole damn thing off. You've heard that one, right, John?
You got it right.
A New York statistician once reported that the music of Johnny Mathis was responsible for 1.5 million baby births during the year 1962. But regardless of how many affairs may have been consummated with a lush love ballad by Mathis playing in the background, one thing is clear. He was the master of romantic music then, and in my view, he still holds that title because to this day, he is singing as good or better than ever because he takes care of that voice. He stays in shape. I'm sad to say that it's only at my house that the Mathis magic doesn't work for me, but that's not really Johnny's fault, it's my age. Sorry, Sandy. Johnny Mathis has stood the test of time probably better than any other singer of his generation. He made it through hard rock, pop rock, acid rock, and punk rock. Someone once wrote, quote, Johnny Mathis' audience has never been teenagers, businessmen, upper middle class, whites or blacks, Republicans, Democrats, or Episcopalians. It's always been people. With every successful singer, there comes that one eventful moment that changes forever the course of a singer's life. Something happens that says, this will never, ever happen again. Things won't be like they used to be. For Johnny, that moment was a Sunday afternoon in the mid-'50s when Columbia Records' George Avakian saw Johnny sing at Helen Noga's Black Hawk Club in San Francisco. She was so impressed that he sent the now famous wire, which you heard earlier, and I'll repeat it. He sent it to New York, and it simply said, have found phenomenal 19-year-old boy who could go all the way, send blank contracts. And the rest, as they say, is history. But amid all the successes you're hearing about today, and you'll hear more, there's still one unfulfilled ambition for this man, Mathis. When he first came out here to California from back east, he was cast in a movie titled Lizzie, produced by Kirk Douglas. John was supposed to sing 2 songs in this movie about a girl with multiple personalities who walks into a nightclub where Johnny was the singing house piano player. Every time she walks in, he starts to sing. Well, Johnny had only one line in the film, but he felt that this was his big Hollywood break. Here's a guy with all these hits already, and he had one line in this film, and he was so nervous and excited about it. The night before filming his big line, and Johnny, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you stayed up all night rehearsing it in front of the mirror until you thought you had it nailed. Next day at the studio, Johnny sang his 2 songs, said his line, which he felt he did very, very well. Kirk Douglas proceeded to leave this budding actor on the cutting room floor. To this day, though he's sung in many motion pictures, he's never spoken a word in one. Well, Johnny may have lost that battle, but he won the war because, as it turned out, the two songs were It's Not For Me to Say and When Sunny Gets Blue. Columbia released them both on a single back-to-back, and the sales department calculated that more people spent money for that single than the people spent at the box office. The two songs were hugely successful. The movie, unfortunately, was a bomb. This is the man who sings to the love-struck adolescence in all of us. And Johnny, I must tell you, it is a privilege to call you friend.
Thanks for joining us. You know, I can already feel the excitement building for our next Hollywood Media Professional Celebrity Showcase.